Hi, and welcome to the December Energy Pawcast for Animal Empaths. So, are we looking forward to December? I hope we are. I hope we're filled with joy that it is actually December and we're going to be coming to the end, obviously, of 2019 and moving into 2020, and that 2-2 energy, which just I think is amazing. It's a master number in numerology. It's going to be a really cool year. I really have a feeling it's going to be a really cool year for those of us that are in service spiritually, and especially those of us that are in service to animals and all of nature. Really, nature's really talking. The plants are really talking now, and they are embracing what we're doing as much as we are getting involved with them, animals and nature. So I really think they're guiding and supporting us, and 2020 is going to be fabulous. Anyway, we still have December. So what are the energies we need to be considering? What is it we need to be considering in the now in order for us to create the December that we would like to see? Okay, and create the potential, the highest potential with a PAW for December. So when I tuned in, what I got, and it was still in letter form, was define the ego concept. Interesting one. Or perhaps it could be, I started considering afterwards, deepening the ego consciousness. So understanding about ego consciousness. Now, you might immediately wonder to yourself or feel somewhere in you, why does someone who is clearly awake and clearly working in a spiritual way, perhaps even their business is to serve animals and their human friends in this way, why are we talking ego, you know? So I think it's important that we do understand this, actually, because when we wake up, when we start to awaken, which often does happen through owning animals, working with animals, being the human friend of an animal, when we start to awaken and see the world in a different way, the idea is that we are seeing it differently. So we start to almost be the observer of that which we was very much in beforehand. So we were kind of caught up in the matrix, or we might describe it in a different way, but essentially we were not in the awakened, expanded state. We were not reaching on our journey to the highest potential. So we do feel differently when this happens, and it's fully understandable that you are going to feel differently when that happens. And as a result, it's quite easy then to fall into the vision or the aspect of seeing other people or that other way that you were before as in some way arrogant or in some way egoic, and not in the way that you feel is a more beautiful and you'll probably describe more loving way of being. So really there becomes that division. And what really I'm getting as I tune in even now is that we as animal empaths need to understand that ego isn't about arrogance. Ego isn't about a bad thing. It isn't to be pushed away. What ego really is, at its ultimate source, is identity. That's what it is, it's identity. So in your new identity, your new felt way of being, you have an ego still. You will never not be you. You will never not have an identity. So you're on your journey, and that identity will grow and shift and change, and it will expand even further now that you're on this journey, especially if you're working with animals. You know, if you watch my videos or you've met me, you know that I fully believe that animals, especially dogs, are here to assist us to enter our heart space more deeply, and in that way, when we're drawn to working with them, we get a boost. You know, we've got them on our side. It's super amazing. So it's this understanding that you will always have an identity, and ego isn't to be pushed away. Now, when you were in the matrix, or before you'd woken up, or when you view other people, if you want to use that term, or that way of being, we don't want to be labeling it as bad. We don't necessarily want to be creating that separation, that division, that's the kind of ego that our mind really picks up on. And that's the kind of ego that creates separation, that creates suffering, that sees victims. We want to be coming from the empathic point of view, the serving point of view, the heart-based point of view, where everything flows within the identity of who you are. Everything is flowing. And emotions are in motion. They're energy in motion. That's what an emotion is. It isn't something that's stuck up in the mind that you focus on and consider and think about and slate yourself or judge yourself or someone else out there for having or expressing. It's simply something that needs to flow and be in motion. So we need to embrace our ego. You know, we need to understand that this is just another identity that we've expanded into. And it doesn't make any other identity wrong, okay? So, yeah, really interesting this that's coming up. I'm going to draw from the card pack, and I mean, it's very relevant for now. I can see why it's come through in terms of December, because when you move into a celebratory time, you know, we've got religious festivals at this time of year, we've got New Year, and very often we are very easily drawn back into a materialistic way of being during those times, or we see a lot of materialism because we haven't let that fear of that materialism go yet, or our fears of what that might mean go yet, our attachment to that go yet. And also you see people that you wouldn't necessarily see at other times in the year. So anything that you've pushed down, anything you've resisted is going to have persisted, and it will show up as a mirror, as a reflection when you're back in that energy again, back in that frequency of that situation, back within the energetic information of that situation, be that a person, be that a place that you might go to that you don't necessarily go to throughout the rest of the year, you know, and that might bring up vibrational memories and information for you. So there's so many ways to understand why ego actually can be quite important for this time of year, to really understand and defining it as identity rather than a bad thing that's out there. And I think it is easy to mix it in with arrogance. It's very easy to tell that person with arrogant they were coming from their ego, you know, and that again moves us well away from it being identity, but at its ultimate root it is identity. So let's pull from the card pack, and this is the collective consciousness of all dogs, which is a consciousness that I've been able to communicate with for long time. I call it the sacred canine heart because it is sacred. It is obviously dogs, and it is definitely coming from the heart, from the magnetic aspects of our dog, which are their subconscious aspects. That really the dog lives in the subconscious. Okay, so I'm gonna pull that out now. Oh, okay. So we've got clarity. So very applicable, and look at that snow. Despite the fact that here I am in a warm country, the sacred canine heart wants you to know that, or wants me to remember that it might be snowing in some of the places. Oh, interesting, very sweet. So clarity, which is what it's all about. Getting clear on what the ego really is rather than pushing it away. And it's go within, try not to let others distract you. And this is so key for understanding the ego, because if we keep looking for what ego is out there, we will never really be in our spiritual identity. So going within and not even entertaining the concept that there are other people. Okay, remembering that we are creative souls, we are creative spirits in a human body. We create our reality magnetically from our hearts. This happens all the time. Okay, we don't switch on the law of attraction. We constantly create from our subconscious using our magnetic and partly electric, but mostly magnetic heart energy. It's more magnoelectric than it is electromagnetic. And our dogs do the same. They live from their heart energy. They're magnetic beings. They are magnetically attracted to something. And that energy is meant to flow. So going within and not letting others, or even labeling there being others, and remembering that we are a creative soul. That is our identity, really, is to be this creative energy. We can create the things that we would like to see in the world. We really, really can. And labeling somebody else or another thing that's happening pulls us into mind-based ego and away from our our heart space. Okay, so getting clarity. I love this. I love the fact that there's snowflakes as well. It's super cool. And the little Merkabas as well. There's 2 Merkabas on this, which, interesting, there's 2. So what I'm getting is you and your soul pet, your soul dog maybe, or your soul horse, that around this time, when we might feel that we're pulled into or back into our mind-based ego, or our matrix side of life, or the materialism side of life, or things are coming up for us, is to take time out with your soul dog or with your soul pet and travel, astral travel in those Merkabas. Go places. Be in other frequencies, be around your other guides, be around galactic guides, pull in this information, sit in that energy, because that is all you really need to do to start allowing the flow to happen. Start allowing those emotions to be seen and felt, and just allow them to flow, rather than reacting from them in some way. You know, if we're going to say at any time that there is ego out there, that something needs to shift out there, first we need to understand, how would we deal in those situations? What would we do? How would we change the energies when we feel fears, when we feel anxiety, when we feel guilt, when we feel grief? What do we do with it? So clarity. I don't know if we need another card. Do we need another card? I'll pull one out. Maybe not necessarily on that topic. Being drawn to the one on the top, actually. Ah, okay, interesting. Yes. So this is the play card. So much, much brighter. And what this is really showing us is that it's not to take life too seriously. So yeah, this conversation that I've brought through for you, this understanding of what the energies will come up for you in December, and what we need to be aware of so we can create a wonderful December. It hasn't been so playful that my readings normally are. So yes, have fun. Really have fun. Many of us will have holiday time, of course, so this will be much easier to do. But have fun, take the time to play. You know, get out the board games that you used to have as children. Instead of considering what went wrong, maybe, it's about what went right. And there is no good or bad, really. There isn't this. It's duality. It's choice all the time. It's choosing and choice. What do we want to create? What do we want to feel? And getting in this feeling of joy, this feeling of playfulness, definitely. So the message on the bottom is have more fun, find your inner child, and encourage your dog's inner puppy. Yeah, so really playing with them. And I don't mean necessarily running around. It doesn't have to be running around, but interacting, having that energy exchange that dogs really like to have with us. You know, really grounds a dog to have energy exchange with us. And they have this magnetic energy flow, and they're always looking to put it somewhere. Where can I put my energy? Where can I put my energy? And really, we should embrace that as well, and allow that to occur for them, so that they can express and they can ground, rather than any limitations which we tend to put on for our dogs. So as animal empaths, it is very important that we understand that ego is identity, rather than something bad, something arrogant that's happening out there. And if we are going into Oh, just had low power mode come up. Hope it stayed on then. Apologies if it didn't. If we find ourselves going into whatever healing modality it is that we have chosen or that we've learned, or whether we're going into a communication, an animal communication of some kind, if we're describing the dog as a thinking being, or I doubt if you are, but you never know, as a hierarchical being, as a being that has any kind of level or any kind of structure, then we're not coming from the heart. Okay, so that pushes us into that mind-based ego of the fears and what's out there. So it's important for us to understand as animal empaths that our identity, our new way of being, is coming from the heart. This is how we want to be. This is why we learn to do these things ourselves. This is why we're drawn to working with animals, so we can live in the heart. And the big step, really, that dogs are here to show us is to come out of the mind and into the heart. And when we're in the mind, we can very much see the dog as a thinking being as well. And we can really hold on to that fact that the dog is a thinking being and not a feeling being. So that, along with hierarchy, or when we take all those things into a session, we are coming from the same place that those that we label as arrogant, those that we label materialistic, those that we label in the matrix are in, you know? So I hope this is making sense. I feel that there's a lot of having to define the two within this, and for me, I'm not so much into that. I don't necessarily think there is the good, the bad, and all that kind of, but for description terms, and which is what I was asked to do, is to define and describe the ego concept. This is what I'm coming up with, and hopefully this is making sense to you, that, you know, all the reason we started to do these wonderful therapies and the reason we were drawn to work with animals is to move away from the old ways of life, the old ways of being, the old paradigms or old paradigms. So to take our minds and our beliefs that dogs are thinking beings and that animals are thinking beings into that, it doesn't make sense. We will keep seeing that outside of us until we realise that everything is simply a flow of energy that's looking to complete itself. Where can I put my energy? So, have a fabulous December, and I hope that's brought some clarity to things. I hope you're going to play and have some fun, and if you want to know where to get these cards, many people have been asking me, because actually they'd be really cool Christmas presents. They're on my website, of course, in the shop, but they're also in Watkins bookstore in London. They're stocked there. And there's another little shop which is near where my mother lives, in a town called Ely in Cambridgeshire. She took some, that lovely lady. So yeah, those two places, and of course online, and because they make a lovely present for anyone who wants to connect with the collective consciousness of dogs. And it does, very often they do bring through your dog as an individual as well, because they're part of that collective consciousness, so why shouldn't they? But it's really about understanding that there's messages from dogs in general and as a collective, rather than just having to individualise and separate them. Okay, so thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video, and I hope you enjoyed it and you will share it and it's brought you some clarity. Okay, take care.